To better grasp the strained relations between the U.S. and Russia, I'm joined now by Anton Fedyshain. He's a professor of Russian history at American University here in Washington. Why don't we begin with this back and forth? Russia saying they believe the chemical attacks meant to undermine the Assad government. The U.S. saying, oh, no, we have intelligence showing just the opposite. And then, you know, Tillerson arriving with all of this kind of these fireworks.
Right.
How do you gauge all of this?
Well, there are many levels to what's going on. The Russians, of course, believe that all of the accusations that have been leveled against Assad and by extension against them are a way to sort of get them off balance before Tillerson arrives in Moscow. I have to say that if they think that Putin's going to spend a lot of time worrying about that, they've got another thing coming. I mean, this guy's been in power for a long time and he knows what he's doing. My prediction for the meeting, however, is that it'll actually go off a lot better than people expect, because a lot of the rhetoric that we've heard coming out of Washington, D.C. has been directed domestically. I mean, it's allowed Trump to sort of take off that accusation of being a puppet of Putin, and now they can sit down and talk with a freer hand than they would have otherwise.
You know, talk with a freer hand, but the talking seems to be a problem with this administration. I mean, Nikki Haley this weekend saying, you know, Assad's got to go. Tillerson saying, well, it's the people of Syria who are going to decide. Now it seems like he's saying Assad's got to go today.
Right.
You never know. I mean, every day it seems like it's almost kind of schizophrenic. How do you deal with that if you're a foreign power?
You are patient and you wait to see what actually happens on the ground. And the Russians have been very patient in Syria. They're patient in general when it comes to foreign policy. They're strategic long-term thinkers, and Putin certainly is that. And I think they're banking on the fact that whether Assad stays or goes, ultimately, the main question about Syria's fate has not been answered in any American proposals. And that is, if Assad goes tomorrow, for example, what happens next? And the Russians have Libya and Iraq to point to as examples of the great backlash of decapitating Middle Eastern regimes and then facing an even worse alternative afterwards. So far, the United States has not suggested any constructive alternatives to Assad leaving. And I guess that will be the real topic of discussion in Moscow tomorrow.
That seems to be a problem here in Washington. We saw that with Obamacare. No one had a solution for it. I mean, the Republicans have been out of office for 8 years. They could have come up with some idea of what to do with it when Assad goes. And that also was a problem for the Obama administration. They don't really have a vision of what Syria looks like if he's gone.
In that sense, there is great continuity between the Obama and the Trump administration. There is no viable Syria policy. And it sounds in many ways to me like what we're hearing now is exactly what we had heard about 3 years ago and 2 years ago from Obama administration officials, except that there's not as much coordination of the narrative out of Washington and New York today, because different people are saying completely different things on different days. So again, I think what's going to happen in Moscow is going to be a lot of horse trading. Some of it will be tough. But in the end, I think the lack of decision in the G7 in Italy the other day about sanctioning Russia or not sanctioning Russia already is a chink in the Trump administration's armor, because it shows that there isn't a united Western approach to Syria. So now Tillerson's going to have to negotiate by himself.
Ukraine, other issues that have come up, where do you see that going?
Well, Ukraine is definitely going to come up. If anything, the Trump administration has been conspicuously absent in Ukraine, and that's been worrying both the Ukrainians and the Europeans, especially the Germans. The news today coming out of Germany is that Merkel is likely to visit Moscow in very early May, because the Germans, according to Der Spiegel at least, have become alarmed at Trump's sort of lackadaisical attitude to what's going on in Ukraine. Is there going to be a Ukraine for Syria deal, which is what you read of a lot? It's very unlikely that the Russians will move in that direction. So I think Ukraine is going to remain neglected by the Trump administration unless something drastic happens tomorrow.
Anton, always a pleasure. Thanks so much. I know you're heading there to Russia soon. Enjoy your stay.
Thank you.